This test has 3 parts. In each part, you'll hear a number of different extracts. At the start of each extract, you'll hear this sound. You'll have time to read the questions before you hear each extract. And you'll hear each extract once only. Complete your answers as you listen. At the end of the test, you'll have 2 minutes to check your answers. Part A. In this part of the test, you'll hear 2 different extracts. In each extract, a health professional is talking to a patient. For questions 1 to 24, complete the notes with information you hear. Now look at the notes for Extract 1. Extract 1, questions 1 to 12. You hear a gastroenterologist talking to a patient called Simon Mortlake. For questions 1 to 12, complete the notes with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at the notes.
Now, Mr. Mortlake, I think you've been referred by your GP. I've got your notes here, but perhaps you can tell me in your own words what seems to be the problem. What's brought you here today?
Sure. Well, it's not the first time I've been to this clinic. I was referred to one of your colleagues about 3 years ago. I had what I thought was a stomach ulcer, which had been troubling me for some time, and my GP suggested I came in for tests. And I had what he called an endoscopy. You know, where they put a tube down your throat and have a look at your insides. And as part of that, they also did a biopsy to make sure it wasn't something more serious.
That's right, and that was clear.
Yes, it was, fortunately. I actually had a condition called Helicobacter pylori, and I went on a course of tablets for that.
Right.
It was cleared up in no time, very straightforward. But the consultant did say that I needed to be alert for any further symptoms. You know, that there's a greater risk of cancer developing after you've had that, and that I should come straight back if I had any problems.
Oh, indeed. And have you had any other medical problems since then?
Well, a couple of years back I had a hernia operation. That was also very straightforward. I had that done just after I retired. I expect it was actually an occupational injury of some kind because quite a few of my colleagues have had similar problems.
Okay.
I was a police officer for most of my working life. Other than that, I keep relatively fit. I'm not taking any medication for anything. I've been well until just recently.
Okay. So what's happened to change that?
Well, I've started to suffer from indigestion, particularly after lunch or dinner. I get heartburn, you know, pain just here.
I see. And are there any other symptoms?
Well, I've also found myself running out of energy. I'm a keen gardener, and I'll be digging or whatever, and suddenly I feel a need to take a rest. I mean, that's not like me. I usually want to finish a job once I've started it, you know. But if I try to push myself too much, I start to get breathless, and that's a bit worrying, to be honest.
I see. And are you aware of your weight changing at all?
Not really. But what I have noticed is that I just don't seem to have such a good appetite anymore.
Right.
I mean, that's partly being retired, I'm sure, but I do keep pretty active. It's just that I don't fancy the sort of big meals I used to eat. I start to feel sick if I have too much.
And are there any other pains or physical symptoms?
Not really. I've been looking out for things like my stomach swelling up, because I know that might be a symptom of something. But to be honest, I can't say I've ever had that.
So what do you think might be the problem?
Well, the thing is, my uncle, that's my mum's brother, he had to have a gastrectomy. And I remember this is how it all started. I mean, the symptoms I've described, and, well, I think these things can run in families, can't they?
Well, they can.
Anyway, the real reason that I want to get checked out is because I've got a big trip coming up. The wife and I have booked tickets on a cruise to Antarctica. I mean, it's the trip of a lifetime. We're really excited about it, but I need to make sure I'm well.
Okay, well, I understand your concern. So what I need to...
Extract 2. Questions 13 to 24. You hear a vascular surgeon talking to a new patient called Monica Patterson. The questions 13 to 24 complete the notes with a word or short phrase. You now have 30 seconds to look at the notes.
Hello, Mrs. Patterson. Your GP has sent you to see me because of some problems with your legs, is that right?
Yes, varicose veins, and they've just been getting worse and worse.
Right. Well, I've got some notes here from your GP, but I wonder if you could tell me in your own words when this started and what's happened so far.
Well, I guess the first time I had problems with my legs was ages ago, when I was pregnant. My son's 25 now, so that shows you how long ago it was. But everyone knows that varicose veins goes with that, don't they? They look horrible at the time, but then they usually disappear again.
And was that the case?
Well, by about a year or 18 months later, they'd gone completely. My legs were looking and feeling fine, and I was back at work then too.
Uh-huh. What do you do?
I was a chef in quite a busy restaurant, so there wasn't much opportunity for sitting around in that job, Doctor, I can tell you. But then, it must be getting on for 4 years ago now, I noticed the veins were coming back. At first I wasn't too concerned, although they seemed to get very scaly, and they itched too around the calves. I tried to follow the advice you find on websites. You know, move around at work, try to keep your feet up on a stool, and avoid crossing your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I did insist on getting a bit of exercise every day. I always managed to fit in walking around town after the lunch service, just for about half an hour or so.
Good. And what treatments have you had so far, Mrs. Patterson?
I first went to see my GP just because they looked ghastly, and I was a bit worried about them. But he said that he could only recommend proper treatment when they got worse and were painful or I had any complications. But he did tell me I should lose some weight. That's an occupational hazard in my job.
Good advice, though.
Well, I did manage to get it down a bit. Anyway, about a year ago, my left leg really swelled up. In fact, they both look pretty nasty with the bulging veins. And you can see now, my feet and ankles are really swollen up.
Yeah.
Also, when I'm in bed, I regularly wake up with terrible cramps. Last night, I didn't know where to put myself. So, then the doctor did an ultrasound scan to see if there was a blood clot. Thankfully, that was all clear. But we agreed it was time to get my legs sorted. Yeah. The doctor arranged for me to have some injections of foam in the veins. He said it was quite a new treatment. It was just with a local anaesthetic and I didn't have to stay in overnight, which was good. I had to wear bandages afterwards for a week or so, and then those compression stockings for another week.
And since then?
Well, that seemed to do the trick at first. They felt much better to start with, although I had awful headaches for the first few days, which I gather happens sometimes. Anyway, now they really seem to be worse than ever. So I'm back to square one. I'm thinking that either we have another go with the injections, or maybe I need to consider surgery this time. That's obviously more invasive, and I know from other people that I'd be very sore afterwards and would have to take time off work. That's a consideration too. I run my own hotel now, so I can't just close it for weeks on end, can I? So, what do you suggest now, Doctor?
That is the end of Part A. Now look at Part B. Part B.